There you go.
So the documents we're looking at are fascinating to me because they combine my first research interest with my latest one. And in fact, I was aware of some of these inscriptions, full cursus inscriptions of a person called the New Theophanes, way back when I did my research. And there's a couple of other things in this document. Translation of governor of a province by Hegemon, but in the form Agimon. I remember way back when I was doing my thesis noting that. So I've been aware of these inscriptions for a long time, and I actually was aware of Theophanes, who occurs in many of these, reading Cicero's Proarchia, who mentions Theophanes. So way back when I was doing Cicero in undergraduate, and also that Theophanes is the last person, not an emperor, to be divinized. And yeah, another of my interests at some point was that, and the ending of anybody other than the emperor being divinized. So these things go back to a lot of my interests. One of the things that is striking when you look at the documents of Mytilene specifically, not the other places where Aeolian dialect was used, mostly Lesbian dialect, is the relatively large number of documents in apparently Lesbian dialect, with some of the triggers of Lesbian dialect. I'll come to them when we look at them. Even though we know that there are inscriptions from the island as early as the 4th century in Koine, including documents from Mytilene which appear to be building instructions for building so many pillars of such and such a height kind of thing, all of which are in apparently Koine. And Koine, Kini, I'm going to switch, by the way, between Greek, modern Greek pronunciation and ancient Greek pronunciation of Greek all the time. I just do this. Even though the widespread use of documents in Koine, we get a large number of formal documents, mostly dedications, a few formal decisions of the city in dialect. This is not common elsewhere in the Greek world. I should do my work on Sparta, which would be the other place where one would suspect this to be so. I've just not done it. But generally, once Koine comes in, dialect disappears, particularly in places like Rhodes, Mytilene, Syracuse, which were in widespread contact with the greater world. So what is going on? One of the things that is also going on is that in the Roman period, in the 1st and 2nd century, again, generally culturally, you get a Greek interest in going back to our sources. In Athens, this is represented by Atticism, going back and only denying the changes that have taken in speech in the last 4 centuries and trying to use careful Attic forms. And there's lots of stories about this. The second Atticism practiced by the second sophistic in the late 1st, early 2nd century. This is a ongoing cultural phenomenon in the ancient world. So what is going on in Mytilene specifically, that we get a fairly large number of documents in apparent Lesbian dialect. I'm going to put that because I'm not sure how valid all of it is. One of the parallels for this is the ongoing practice of people who are not from the island admiring Alcaeus and Sappho and writing material in the same style as Alcaeus and Sappho, mainly Sappho. I've not actually found any followers of Alcaeus, but there are people who copy Sappho, and I sent some to you, the lovely set of poems from Julia Balbilla on this statue, allegedly of Memnon, actually of, I can't keep my Ramesses straight, but actually of, which made a sound under certain circumstances. And this was a great tourist attraction in the 1st and 2nd century, and is covered with graffiti. And some of these graffiti, look at them. She didn't write this with a pen. She had somebody go there and spend 2 weeks carving it on the stone. But there are also, I so-and-so of the 3rd Legion was here and heard Memnon speak, not in verse and all the rest of it. This was obviously a cultural phenomenon. She is very interesting. She is the companion of Sabina, the wife of Hadrian. And I've read a lot of people saying she was a companion in more than one sense, as Hadrian had his companion, so she had hers. I don't think there's any good evidence for this, but there's been a lot of thought about, particularly since Marguerite Yourcenar's biography of Hadrian, about that family. So we have somebody in the 1st century, in the 2nd century, about 130, writing poems in apparently Sapphic verse. And she's not nobody. She's not only is she the personal companion of the Empress Sabina, she is the she's the sister of the Philopappus who has that enormous statue in Athens, still on the Hill of the Nymphs. She's the descendant of one of the lines of the Syrian dynasty, and her name is Julia Balbilla. Somehow that goes back, I think, to Julius Balbus, the Gaditana, who was given citizenship by Julius Caesar and who was a close friend of Theophanes. By the way, Theophanes got his anyway, there's an adopted Balbus, whatever that meant, because he kept his name Balbus. There's a relationship between the first Theophanes. And later on I found that thing that I also sent you by a hymn to Rome, not only in dialect but in Sapphic stanzas, by somebody, I don't know if she's, who she is. The thing I found, it says she's Locrian, but she's writing in apparent. So writing in apparent Sapphic poetry, even if you're not translating into Latin like Horace, is something that is taking place in the Greek cultural revival of the early Roman period. So we then start looking at a set of documents from Mytilene, and I've picked ones for the people. I've deliberately picked ones that are for the people who are mentioned by Strabo as famous people in his time, which is Crinagoras, Potamo, Lesbonax, and Theophanes. So I tried to get people that followed that. Crinagoras never wrote in dialect. I sent you a poem of his that I think is describing the island, but as far as I can tell, he wrote in literary Ionic, which is what you do when you're writing elegiacs. And look at me, I'm so clever, I can do this. There's a story that one of the first Roman governors of Asia Minor said, I can so hear cases in Greek, not only in Greek, but in 5 dialects of Greek. Aren't I clever? This is quoted by someone like Valerius Maximus, just as a famous thing about, no documentation other than that, but that some, so that, yeah, the awareness of different dialects, the showing off by scholars that you can do this is all very typical of Roman period Greece. The documents that we have, one of the things we have to realize is that we have no documents in anything other than standard Attic script. In other places like Crete, we have documents in what's called an epicoric alphabet. So we literally have no documents in, so that how somebody writing in Aeolic Lesbian, using a writing system that was devised for 4th century Athens, becomes highly problematic. I'll give you one example, and it's actually from Balbilla, the first poem. The text that we have has got hue with a D gamma. It's in the Balbilla. You don't need to look at it in detail, but the published text has a written D gamma. What's actually on the stone is a gamma. Historically, we know that that word would have had a D gamma in it. It would have been hue. But we don't have any text from Lesbos with a D gamma on it. So they're either not expressing it, or using a U, or using something else. The gamma, I don't know what's going on with the gamma, whether that, and I'd have to go back to our manuscripts of Sappho and Alcaeus to see whether we get gammas there too, because those, again, they're written in Egypt in the 1st and 2nd century when the D gamma was not in use. So just as an example of the problem we have in identifying dialect, all kinds of reasons to believe that wa was active in, at least in Sappho and Alcaeus' time, that Balbilla thought that she could use one, but that her stonecutter actually put a gamma on the graffito on the. So I'd like to turn to the texts, and the first one of Pompeius. This is Theophanes, Soter, and Euergata of the city. Really nothing that would flag it as particularly, except his father's name. But his father's name is Eroita with iota epsilon. If we go back to Sappho, it mostly turns up with an iota. So Iya looks like it's already. So I'm going to see if I can find any other inscriptions for him, because I think we may have others that name him as Eroita. Yes, I'm sorry, I didn't copy this one. There's a statue of him where he's Eroita, where he is Gaius Pompeius Eroita with an iota. So even in inscriptions to the same person, you can the person inscribing them, whether that's the person himself or the city of Mytilene, is not quite sure about what to do with, for example, hieros. Other things about it not particularly striking, except the alphas. Hieroi ta, he doesn't have the eta that those kind of names have. He's not. He's a uergeta, not a uergetes. This is all fairly standard and not particularly. This is typical of not Ionic, not Attic, that you have alphas in these words. So that's an example. Then we have, and this is also, but this is for perhaps the most important lesbian of the current period. That's what Strabo calls him. Give you some sense. He was Pliny's Praefectus Faberum. He wrote Pliny's Praxis. And we have lots of quotes of him writing Pliny's Praxis because he wrote Pompey's Praxis, because Pompey went over the world. So we get references to places where Theophanes is our source, because Pompey went there. He was probably the first Roman citizen, first Greek given Roman citizenship. He's an important person. It looks like he was the person who gave the bad advice to Pompey to go to Egypt. But Pompey retired to Lesbos, where his family was, and they had a conference, what do we do now? And they decided that at least the two records we have, which are Lucan and somebody else, is that Theophanes was the person who gave what turned out to be the wrong advice, was to go to the Ptolemies. And of course we know what happened. So another one is, and this is typical, look at this one. This is Pompey, Theophanes, and Potamo. And they're all Tista, Tas, Polios. They're all founders of the city.
The fourth one.
Pompey gave the city back its freedom, according to our records, because of Theophanes. And Potamon is the other important person. We have tons of documents on Potamon in both dialects. Dialectally, what do we have here? Not very much. Ktista, Polios, notice, again, that's not particularly marked as lesbian. But it's part of the package of being non-Attic. Then we have a longer inscription for Potamo, which is more interesting. He is the Apigonos, and here we have one of the marks, Api for Apo. Consistently, this one is fairly common, but to claim to be an Apigonos, look where we're going. Back to Penthelos, the founder of the king of the Aeolians. And what did he do? He was the he took presbeia on behalf of the gods and goddesses of the island and of Lesbos, and was the nomothetos of the city and the Uergate of the city, because of his Arete and his Eunoia. So this is the koinon of the lesbians, not just the city of Mytilene, honouring Potamon, descendant all the way back. And I want to emphasize that. People who claimed ancestry going back to the good old, to the foundation legends of our city, of our country. Dialect, I'd like you to notice paisan, ton theon panton ke paisan. Alpha iota for complex clusters, that would be parson in pantiaon, to give it its full linguistic form, paisan. And we get this also with accusatives. I think we'll find some accusatives where we get tois theois, meaning tus theus, where the iota. What is not clear to me is how this was pronounced. Whether this was a marker of length, as is what happened to Pantheon became Parson, and so whether there was actually iota there, or whether this is just a way of marking long alpha. But it's very typical of this dialect that you will get those iotas there. But the combination of the claim of great antiquity with the use of dialect by the koinon of the lesbians. And then we switched to the 2nd century. To a descendant of this guy, Marcus Pompeius Neos Macrinus, we know his name from other places, Neos Theophanes.
Second one on the package.
Second one on the package, yes, they got out of order, I'm sorry, yes. Marcus SEG 29241, that one. Le Grande Inscriptions de Theophanes à Lesbos, to quote Hardot, who originally published it. Long document in the nominative. And I have been great worries about what this is. Presumably it's a statue base.
Third one.
Okay, sorry.
Sorry,
I
third
assume
one.
it's a third. I assume it's a statue base because it's not. Either it's not the demos honors, which would be accusative, or this is a dedication to, anathema to in the dative. It's in the nominative. I suspect it's a statue, and I suspect he put it up himself. And that's my real point. It's unusual to get these things in the nominative without either a dedication or either a stated dedication in the accusative or something long in the dative. So I'm kind of assuming it's a statue base. I believe from where it was found that it was outside his city house in Mytilene. And that's the first thing I want you to notice. This is a person with, you don't need to know the whole long career, but with a full Roman political career. Ending with his highest position was Anthipatos Epacheas Afrikos, which is the highest position a person who's not a member of the administration, not gone through the military. This is what we used to call senatorial positions. And Asia or Africa were the two big ones. And it looks, by the way, as though they tried not to have Asians be proconsuls of Asia and Africans be proconsuls of Africa. I'd have to work on that one to prove that, and it's a long time since I did that kind of prosopography. So a long career in Rome, and we have this inscription in other places. He was a very important person. We have this inscription in other places in Standard Greek. So he or his family, after he died, or possibly the city of Mytilene, must have decided to honor him, and honor him in this full form. He's aeronomos, which looks like that would be hieronomos. That looks like it's a local position. He's aeronomos and something else of the city. So he has a position in the cult of the city, governing hiera, managing hiera, something like that. And that comes before his Roman career. And that, I think, is important. And then he is, that same word again, he's apugonos, same word that Totemo had used for his, he is a descendant of the famous Theophanes. The stem is complicated, but yes, it works. There's a son who's a tribune, a grandson who's a praetor, then they are in a clash with Tiberius because Graeca Adulatia had made their ancestor a god. Says Tacitus says, Tiberius says, which is why a member of the family was exiled. Nevertheless, there are people a generation later claiming descent. So even if somebody was exiled or killed, this guy, 2 or 3 generations later, can be. And this is a high Roman position. He's consul, quinde comver sacris faciundis. I love that. Latin just written out in Latin. You know, when I was doing my thesis, I found somebody who said that this was haste tone pentekaideca hieron. You know, if you wanted to do it, you could do it. You could translate it. But no, he just has it written out. Sodalis Augustalis, quatuor weird. We have that from another inscription of him. Quaestor and propraetor are there. Damarchos, Stratagos, Presbeutas. Notice Argimon for leader of the legion. We have that form in a text that I didn't give you. We have a lot of inscriptions for the imperial family, including Lucius and Julius Caesar, the sons of Augustus, who are called Argimones tas neotatos. So Argimon, it's restored here, but on the basis of that inscription for. So Presbyteros and Stratagos, Eparchius. Afrikos is very interesting because it's certainly there in the text. That's not how you would do it. We've got lots and lots of Greek texts talking about that part of the world, including the proconsular province, and it's always Africae. But this is clearly, somebody thought that there was a noun, Afrix, with a genitive Afrikos. As far as I know, it's on the text. There's no question that that is the reading. So it looks to me that Theophanes, or one of his family, was doing a little bit of classical archaism again, making it be of Afrikos. He acted for the Diateresios and Synaxios. Notice the eos for eos for nouns of the polis type. He did various things to Teton, Ion, Adrianon, Antonina. That's Antoninus Pius, if you're not used to that. What the family did was there was an earthquake in 148, which destroyed practically the whole of certainly the whole of Mytilene. And so yes, the prominent people did what you always do. You go to Rome and ask for help. And this person reached the height of a senatorial career, is back in Mytilene, and is serving as aeronomos of the state, and then goes to Rome and says, "Help! We need," and gets this elaborate document in his favor, or I believe wrote it himself. But this is for me is very much what is going on. But just pick up then Apugonos again, Afrikos, and as I say, the wonderful attempt to get the Roman career in. You don't need to know the Roman career. It's just that these are right at the top of Roman society, which is why I was raising Balbilla, because this is a career that would have, if he's serving at the end of his career, sending embassies to Pius, that means that the consulship and proconsulship of Africa would be contemporary with Hadrian. I'm sure Hadrian knew this guy, which raises the possibility that Julia Bulbilla knew this guy, that we're in the same, but we're in the same framework of people. There are few people. There's Herodes Atticus of Athens, who is high up in the administration of Rome, is regular consul. There are descendants of the Eurycles family from Sparta, who are also associated both with Julia Balbilla's family and with Theophanes' family. The Euryclids got attacked by Tiberius at the same time that Theophanes' family did. Now, what I believe, before we leave Pompeii, before we leave this guy behind, is who turns up to be the solution to the plot at the end of Daphnis and Chloe? What's Daddy's name? Dionysophanes. Who suddenly turns up to rescue everything. We have two Theophanes, two Theophanes, I guess. Two Theophanes who saved Mytilene twice. There is also a Diophanes who was instructor to Tiberius Gracchus in rhetoric. He's a Diophanes. There's a Praxiphanes who's a Aristotelian philosopher, I think. Anyway, a philosopher, I don't